Gosh, well, we got a lot to talk about here, and I never really know how this goes. It's always different every time, but there is some basic material that I need you to know. And in order to understand, in order to maximize the effectiveness of your child's treatment, it's important as well to understand what it is that's really happening. Now, I probably need you to know as well why there is this approach. And understand that for me personally, having been involved with the adolescent treatment industry, such as it is, for like over 30 years, I have become incredibly, I guess, irritated, disenfranchised from all of that, primarily because I have this empathetic orientation with you as parents, realizing that for most parents, having difficulty with your child and really trying to understand, how do I get the treatment that I need? What really is that treatment? And with the proliferation of the internet, there was this great quote that I saw just the other day that it said the internet is a light bright for bad ideas. Okay, I was like, yeah, that's kind of how it is, man. And really, it's like when you get on there and everybody looks good, everybody has this great website, everybody has all the right little initials that they have to have on their websites. Well, we do DBT, okay, and we have equine therapy, and we do CBT as well, okay, and all of this is like, as a parent, and you're thinking, well, how do I make sense of all of this? And for me, previously, as the clinician, my frustration has always been parents get marketed what they can be marketed, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with treatment, okay? And so when I cut ties with like my former company, and I've been with for a really long time, one of the things that I vowed at that point was, look, however I have to do this, I need parents to have this information. Okay, I need them to be the ones that now have control over the treatment process. And the way that they're going to do that is to have the information that they need. And that truly is the piece that we want to talk about today. And I think, can everybody see this okay? Should I move this maybe out of the way a little bit so then we don't have to look around this? Wow, live mic. Okay, so I want to start out first of all by talking about this whole notion of treatment. Now, from my perspective, if I am going to be this treatment provider for you, then there is some obligations that I have. I have some obligations to myself. I have some obligations to you as well. So if I'm telling you, look, I am going to provide treatment, and really I understand what this is. You're going to pay me money to provide this treatment, okay? But I have an obligation then. If I'm providing you treatment, I need to be able to say, look, I can tell you, I can define for you the nature of the condition that requires treatment, right? I need you to understand the nature of the condition that requires treatment as well. So that when I am saying, here is the treatment that we are applying, then I can also tell you, this is why we are applying this treatment, okay? For the condition that we are treating, this is the appropriate treatment. Then the other piece about this is that I need you as the parent to be the one who has the ability to assess, how do you know whether or not the treatment is having its intended effect? How do you know when we're done? Okay? It's not just a matter of, well, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take my child who is completely out of control, and I'm going to turn him over to Dr. okay? Wherever Dr. Ed might be. And then there's going to be this mysterious black box of treatment that takes place where I insert my child in one end of the black box, and then at the other end, I take this choir boy out, okay? And then, whatever it was that went on in there, that mysterious voodoo that was, it's like, it's some important stuff. No. I don't want that, because I never really ever want it to be about me, okay? I don't ever really want it to be about the program, okay? I don't ever really want it to be about the administrators of the program, the people who are in the program, okay? I need it to be about your child and the relationship that you have with your child. And the piece that we want to look at today is how do we begin using the relationship that you have with your child to be the thing that assesses really how are we making this progress. Now, one of the things that you're going to hear, you hear this a lot, it's part of your child still engaged in the early process of treatment. It's one of those indicators that we're still in the early process. But I think we ought to bring it up because Mr. Steve also kind of alluded to this as well. If there's a huge paradox for parents, it's like, well, I have to take my child, I have to have them go someplace because they can't live with me right now, but I have to have them go somewhere where they are learning to be more excellent than they are right now. Where they are learning to be more perfect than they are right now. But the problem with this is that I have to put them in a place that's not perfect. Okay, I have to put them in a place where it's not a perfect program. Okay, and there are no perfect people there. Okay, the staff is not perfect. The therapists are not perfect. Okay, that I have to put my child in this place where they have to learn to become as excellent and as perfect as they can be in an imperfect world. Wow, now what does that sound like, really? Okay, isn't that pretty much life as we live it? That is our task, to try and be as excellent as we possibly can be, as perfect as we can be, but we have to live in this imperfect world. And if I make it about the world, then it's not ever about me going through the process that I came here to do. Right? So, that's the piece. I need it to be about your child and the relationship that you have with your child. It can't be about me. It can't be about the staff. It can't be about the program. Because if it's all about that kind of stuff, we're not doing the work. Right? It needs to be about your child and the relationship that you have with your child. That's what it needs to be about. Now let's talk about this, and let's move into some of these things that are the basic cornerstones of all of this. Okay, keep going. Defining the problem. Here's our first step. What really is the problem in the past? And I understand that for most of you coming to this facility, coming to any of these kind of things, is usually not your first rodeo. Okay, this is not usually the initial foray into the treatment process. I've done this before. I've had some experience with this before, and usually, when my child starts showing these kind of out of control tendencies, I have them go someplace. I have them go see a therapist. I have them go see a counselor. I go get a psychological evaluation, whatever it might be. And what do I usually get as a definition of what the problem might be? I get a diagnosis, right? So, how many of you have gotten a diagnosis before? Yeah. Oh, okay. Very nice. Tell me some of those. What was the diagnosis that? Can you remember the diagnosis? The diagnosis was
ultimately Asperger's syndrome and ADHD.
Okay. Very good. All right. What else? Other diagnoses? Bipolar disorder. There we go.
Anxiety.
Yeah, okay. The anxiety disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Reactive attachment.
There we go. Oh, man. There we go. Yep. And oppositional defiant, yeah. Okay, so it's like, finally, I've got the diagnosis. How helpful was that? Okay, that was great. Now that I have the diagnosis, I have the golden brick road, right? It's going to take me right to Oz, where everything's going to be great.
Remember that day.
Yeah, that was it's like, oh, we got the diagnosis. Yeah, we're going to Sizzler now, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's what it was really all about. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, okay, well, I have a diagnosis now. What does this mean? Well, maybe let's start therapy, okay? And now we'll start the psychiatric salad as well. Here we go. Let's try this one. 4 to 6 weeks. Come back in 4 to 6 weeks, and we'll adjust it, or we'll try something different. Okay? And like, how helpful was that really? Yeah. All right. So it wasn't helpful. Let's go on to this other piece here. All right. Now, here's what's really going on with out-of-control adolescence. The real problem is that in spite of the fact that my child is aging, okay, they're compiling the years, okay, we've got that part, but they're not maturing. They're really not growing up. They're stuck in there someplace. All right, now there's some life energy going into something. Keep going. It's like we're frozen here on what we will refer to as the developmental vacation. That's what we're talking about here. That my child has gotten to a specific point in their maturation level, and bam, they have stopped. Okay? And they've stopped growing up. They're getting older, they're not growing up. So, what they're doing is if I'm frozen, then it means there's a big segment of my life that I am avoiding. Everything that I need to do that's going to help me acquire the wisdom, knowledge, and competencies that I need in my life to be an independently responsible human being, I'm not doing that stuff. Okay? I'm staying frozen on my developmental vacation. That's what I'm doing. And I'm not developing those mature coping mechanisms that I need to handle the world in a mature manner. I'm avoiding all of that stuff. I'm not doing difficult things in my life, the things that would compel me to be moving forward. So beyond the diagnosis, this is kind of a trans-diagnostic orientation, if you will. Now, what we're really looking at is my child's not growing up, and they're not being fully prepared to be able to manage the expectations that are going to come crashing down upon them at that point that they become young adults. Now, what are they doing instead? Okay, there's life energy that's going on here. Keep going, Robin. This next piece here, right? So, I'm putting all of my energy, all of my life energy, instead of allowing myself to be exposed to all of those things that I need to have in my life that are actually assisting me to become that more competent individual. What I'm doing is I'm using all of my life energy to ensure that I can maintain my developmental vacation. That is the most important thing to me. Now, how do I do this? Let's go to the next one here, all right? We've already talked, and the older that I get, okay, the insistence that I stay on a developmental vacation is the thing that leads to those behavioral problems that we are seeing, right? Because the older that I become, the less appropriate my developmental vacation is. So if I'm still wanting to handle the world like I'm a 5-year-old kid, okay, at that point that I'm 14, 15, 16, my engagement with the world as a 5-year-old kid becomes increasingly, exponentially more inappropriate. And that's where the behavioral problems come. Now, let's think, how does this actually take place? How does my child actually manage to stay on the developmental vacation, all right? Keep going. This piece right here, okay? This is the part that we need to understand more than anything else. The way that I stay on my developmental vacation is that I insulate myself from the world with dependencies, okay? We will refer to these as dependencies. Now, we have to talk about 3 categories of dependencies. And typically when you think of dependencies, you're thinking of like the chemical dependencies. And sometimes this can be a little confusing because you may be thinking, well, gee, my child is not really using drugs or substances, but yet they're still out of control. So let's talk about the 3 categories of dependencies, okay? Keep going. We have the first one here, which for our purposes, especially if your child is here in the initial stages of the program, okay? Then we need to talk about this, the human dependencies. Now, there are 2 categories of human dependencies, of which you are one, okay? You occupy one of those categories, okay? Then that category is going to be my parents. If I'm on a developmental vacation, it means that I have not yet accomplished the developmental tasks that I have to in my childhood, such that I can allow my parents to be parents in my life. Okay? At this point on the developmental vacation, my parents are really not parents. They don't have that influence in my life that I would want them to have. Now think about this, because as parents, one of the more frustrating things that we have to encounter, one of the realities that comes crashing in upon us as well, when we step back and think about this when we're looking at our 16-year-old child, is recognizing I've had this child in my home for 16 years or so, however long it's been. They've been with me for this long. And we are at this point where the only influence that I have in my child's life is my ability to control their stuff. Okay? That I'm really not a parent in their life. I'm a stuff manager. And, that was never ever one of those things that I envisioned when my child came into my life. Right? Whatever that scenario may have been, whether my child was adopted, whether my child is my biological child, whatever that might be, when they came into my life, and you kind of remember how this is, we play those little Hollywood moments in our world, and in our minds, there's that little soundtrack that starts when we first gaze into our child's eyes, right? And we see them. It's like, we can see them when they're taking those first kind of tottering steps there on the living room, and we're helping them go back and forth. Yeah, come on, you can do it. Those kind of things. We see them out riding their tricycle with the dog with a little balloon on the handlebars. Those kind. And they're at their first soccer game where they're playing that guppy ball. Come on, kick it in the net. Those kind of things. Where sitting in the audience, listening to them, read their poem up on the stage, whatever those things might be. But there never was that time that we envisioned that by the time they got to be mid-adolescence, that we would have zero influence other than our ability to take away their phone, okay? Or their ability to give them access to other electronics in their lives. That's the only influence that we have. And the interesting thing about this is that there are those systems of parenting out there who in essence will teach you to become a better stuff manager, as opposed to, let's try and figure out how you manage to get 16 years with your child and not have any other influence in their life other than their ability to manage stuff. Okay? That's the real problem. That's where we need to take a look at this. Okay? So part of this is if I'm on a kid on developmental vacation, I am seeing you as an object. And you are going to be an object that is either going to be validating to my developmental vacation, or hopefully, once you have enrolled them in a process of treatment, I want you to be invalidating to that, okay? That part of the goal now would be to move you from becoming a mere object into becoming a parent once again, okay? Or maybe a parent for the first time. But it's important to realize that your child, to be able to stay on a developmental vacation, has to have you as an object. You have to be a dependency, right? So if you are the first category of human dependencies, what would you think the second category of human dependencies would be? Oh, gee, intuitively, just came right out of the air. Absolutely. Did you friends? Friends, right? And, this is an important one for me as a kid who's on a developmental vacation, right? Because I need friends who are also on a developmental vacation. We have this little club. We are the ones who understand each other. Everybody else is a moron, okay? That we have the secret. Oh, did this kind of get close to home? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, it's because we have the little secret. We validate each other. If I'm a kid on a developmental vacation, I'm not hanging around with those achievement-oriented kids because we don't validate each other. And our understanding of the way that the world works will be different as well. So I have to have my friends as well who are dependencies, They're my crew, okay? They're more important to me than my family. I'm not giving up my boys, okay? And I'm doing whatever it is that I have to do to maintain my position in this group of individuals who are on a developmental vacation. So, part of the difficulties with this is as parents, again, we like to insulate ourselves with this notion, like, well, you know what? My child just kind of fell into the wrong crowd, okay? They got hanging around. It's like, the truth is your child is the wrong crowd, okay? That's the problem. And if your child was not the wrong crowd, they would not be falling in with the wrong crowd because those individuals would not be validating him, okay? He would not be validating them as well. He would be finding that crowd that validates him. The phrase that I always use with the students, and they don't get this, they have to think about this for a little bit, but it's the notion that water seeks its own level. You've heard that, right? It's that same thing with the students. That's where they are. Okay, so those two categories of human dependencies, parents and friends. The second category here would be the more traditional dependencies. Go ahead. These emotional insulators that tend to come from one of the more traditional sources. Again, we could talk about the substances, okay, would be probably the most obvious of all of these. But it's anything that I am doing to insulate myself from the reality of my life, okay? The emotion that is connected with the reality of my life, I am not feeling that emotion because I am finding some way to insulate myself with this. Now, we have like the substances, because this is the more common of these. And if we were to look at it, if I were to examine my life from a third-party framework, and I look at it, it's like, okay, here's a kid who's been on developmental vacation for 6+ years, has been avoiding accumulating skills and competencies and coping mechanisms, and has actually damaged relationships that are important to him, okay? That the individuals in his life who are actually choosing to care about him of their own accord, he is damaging those relationships. And he's failing at other places in his life in preparation to become a more independently responsible human being. Okay? Now, if we're stepping back and looking at that, we would be thinking, gee, there would probably be some anxiety or depression associated with that. Okay? Now, individuals who are more mature in their orientation in the world, when we begin feeling anxiety or sometimes even that dysphoria, some depression, whatever that might be, it becomes a signal to us that's telling us that, there's something wrong here, okay? There's something that I need to do. I need to apply myself here someplace and alter the situation, right? And so, that emotional material now becomes a signal, I'm going to get my life in order here. I got to change something. But if I am using something to insulate me from that emotion, I don't ever get the message the memo does not land in my inbox, okay? Because I have been insulating myself from that. So of course, my emotional material, the emotional material that I ought to be feeling, because it is consistent with the life that I'm living, it doesn't get there. I'm not motivated by it, okay? And even though you as parents, even those around me, it's like, man, can't you see what you are doing to your life, okay? Don't you feel some guilt about all of this? No, I don't, because I have a way of insulating myself from this. I'm not feeling it, okay? And a nice thing about this too, if I'm really, really good in that first category of dependencies, if I'm really good at using you as a dependency, one of the best things that I do is shovel that off onto you, okay? So I become very, very good at making you anxious and making you responsible for the crap that I'm avoiding in my life. And I sit back and watch you try and manage that because I know you are a responsible individual. Okay? And as many times as I tell you how much I absolutely detest you and don't want to be around you, don't want to live with you, those kind of things, I know you are not going to abdicate your role as my parent. So I can be pretty irresponsible as long as I know you are going to be responsible. So that you are the one now that feels all of the anxiety that I don't, okay? I've shoveled it off onto you. Now, students in the early stages of their treatment are extremely good at this, okay? Because all I have to do is say, I'm not going to do this. I hate you. I'm never coming home. I'm not ever going to live with you. You are never going to see your grandkids, okay? And you know, for you as parents, I want to elicit from you that, oh, man, we really made a mistake. Okay, let's pull them out of there right away, okay? That kind of thing. Because I know that you will be feeling some fear. I know that you will be experiencing some anxiety. My experience with you in the past has been you feel the fear and anxiety, you leap into action. You start marshaling all the resources to fix my life. Okay? And I sit back and watch you do the song and dance, and I don't have to do anything. And it doesn't really matter what you do. It's not going to impact what I'm doing at all. It just gives me more latitude to stay on that developmental vacation. Okay? So I'm not feeling that kind of anxiety. And it happens here a lot as well. You as parents are feeling extremely anxious because your child is trying to wait you out, so to speak. So it's like, oh my gosh, why is he not getting it? Okay, is he ever going to get it? How come he's not getting it? What's the deal? And so you transfer that anxiety onto me as the therapist or onto Tana as the therapist. It's like, what the hell kind of a therapist are you? Okay, you know, we're paying good money for this program and it's not working. Okay, and so now we're feeling that anxiety. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible therapist. I suck as a therapist. Okay, and so now I'm coming up. Well, what are all of these interventions that I can do to get this child going? And see, the problem is your child is the only one that's not feeling any anxiety. Okay, and it's their anxiety to feel. And part of the developmental vacation is I don't feel anything. I do not feel anxiety. It's somebody else's job to do that. Okay? So if I'm on a developmental vacation, I'm not experiencing my own emotional material. Okay? I'm insulating it and somebody else gets it. Now, in this category of traditional dependencies as well, are those kinds of things that I like to categorize as the psychological dependencies as well, okay? And these tend to be those defense mechanisms that I use instead of actually coping. You know, and a lot of this is the acting out, a lot of this is the anger. It's whatever it is that I have to do to, again, put this outside of me. Okay? And this is where your child is devoting their life energy to becoming an avatar instead of a human being. Okay? And this encompasses a lot of space in life, right? This is the social media sites. This is the gaming sites. This is the pornography stuff, okay? This is where all of that is. This is me being something other than a human being. I'm creating an avatar and I'm putting all of my energy into being that avatar more or less. And that's where it becomes important to me. And, you know, this is tough. This is a tough one for parents. You know, it's actually, you know, been kicked into turbo over the last few years as well. But, you know, it's hard to know, okay? It's like, it's going to be a part of our life. You know, that it's going to be out there, and how do I begin recognizing, is this really a difficulty for my child, or is this a difficulty even for me? And the way that we begin recognizing this is to determine, is my life, or excuse me, is my child structuring their life around their ability to be that avatar, so to speak, okay? Are they structuring their life? Are they just superficially engaged in what other meaningless kind of activities such as school or whatever it might be? You know, I'm doing it so that I can now be that avatar. That's where my life actually is. And, you know, is my life now becoming such that I have to have the approval or the validation from the internet, so to speak? I'm carrying my pocket audience with me wherever it is that I go. And I can't do anything unless I am getting that external validation. You know, here's the tacos for lunch. Oh, thumbs up, yeah. Okay, now I can progress. But I can't do anything unless I have that validation from my pocket audience, whatever it might be. You know, is my life being structured by, you know, what's taking place on cyberspace and by the avatar? Because the more energy that I put into that, the less I have available to actually engage in the real world. You know, and if I am just using the real world as a means to be able to maintain my process dependency, then I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. It's going to be hard to get by that because I'm using that to insulate me from the expectations that I have in my life. Absolutely. Questions, comments, anything about this, the dependency piece? It's huge. This is the primary foundation of the whole developmental vacation. I can stay on a developmental vacation as long as I am in control of the delivery of one of these dependencies. And if I have more than one, oh, so much the better. Give me that kind of backup plan. Please go ahead.
Can the prescription drugs be considered an emotional insulator?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and how have you not had this experience? It's like, oh, I'm going to use the medication as an issue now to power struggle with you, so that I can continue to demonstrate to you that you are nothing more than an object in my life that I can manipulate now using the medication. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Dr. Dan, on the human dependency, says that the second kind of category is friends, but isn't it really sort of just non-parents, right? So could be friends, other family members, neighbors, right? It's sort of
oh, absolutely. Kind of yeah, and you know what tends to happen though? You see a lot of kids whose parents are actually savvy to all of this. That they've decided, no, I'm not going to be an object. I am actually going to be a parent in your life, whether you like it or not. So what do? Well, I just find a substitute parent. I find some well-intentioned other individual, my friend's dad or somebody like that, who has decided, oh yeah, your parents suck. If you were my kid, yeah, I would set you up. 2014 Mustang convertible, oh, no problem, yeah. If you were my kid. You know, so I will find somebody like that. You know, as long as I can control the delivery of those dependencies, if I can turn these other human beings into dependencies, I will do it if I'm on that developmental vacation. Yeah, please go ahead.
This is a follow-up to this gentleman's comment. We've also found that the non-custodial parent is a ready-made component that fits right into that model.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, especially if there is a significant degree of volatility between the two biological parents. Yep, I will use my child as the battleground, and yeah, Kids are become incredibly savvy to that. Okay, so let's keep going here. Now, here's the thing. What we're doing is my child has become incredibly competent at ensuring that there's a delivery of dependencies. Okay? And I wish they were putting that kind of energy into, actually let me figure out how to be a human being, all right? Let me figure out how to have some mastery in this life. No. And this is one of those things, gosh, I talked to Judy about this just even last night, and there have been others of you where we've had this conversation. This is why my child will lie to me, and in subsequent lectures we'll talk about this more, but this is why my child will lie to me even when it would be better for them to not lie, right? But they're going to lie to me because the primary goal is that I continue to keep you as a dependency. And part of you being a dependency is that I need to lie to you. I know I'm lying to you, but I have to watch you buy the lie. As long as I can do that, that's me becoming incredibly competent at keeping the dependencies in place. Right? Okay, let's keep going. Now, here we go. Treatment. If the condition that we're talking about that requires treatment is the developmental vacation, now we need to talk about, well, so what's the treatment done? Okay, is there some treatment? Well, there's two components. And the primary component that we are going to be talking about and that will be our essential concern through this process is the first part of that. That first component is disruption. Okay, and I think, let's see, is the next slide as well? Yeah. So whatever that dynamic may have been that has created and sustains the developmental vacation, that has to be disrupted. Okay, and in essence, this means that my child must find themselves in a situation such that they are no longer in control of the delivery of dependencies in their life. Okay? And it really doesn't matter. We have to think about it in these terms. If my child is still in control of even access to any one of those categories of dependencies that we've talked about, if they are still in control of that, then it doesn't matter what level of brilliant intervention that we are applying, it will have zero impact. Okay? And unfortunately, again, there have been members of my profession that have actually inadvertently strengthened your child's capacity to use human beings as dependencies. Right? So sometimes even the interventions that we try, if we don't understand this concept, will inadvertently strengthen your child's developmental vacation. And we don't really want to do that. That would not be the goal. Okay? So it's important to recognize that disruption is the primary goal. When you bring your child into treatment, if I have any kind of supervisory component of that, then the number one goal of treatment is always going to be, we're disrupting this dynamic, okay? We're disrupting your child's capacity to use the world as a dependency, to use human beings as dependency. We're disrupting their ability to access those other emotional insulators that they're using. We're disrupting their capacity to allow the psychological dependencies to have their intended impact, right? And hey, there's no internet here. Okay? Cold turkey, right? That's what's got to happen. And this is why this is so difficult to do on an outpatient basis. I know this, and again, I have those heart-wrenching moments with parents in my office in St. George, where it's like, look, okay, we can try this. We can try to do this on an outpatient basis, okay? But you now are going to have to become the dependency sheriff of the world, okay? You're going to have to be the one that ensures, and you know how your child's like, okay, I'm turning off the internet. Nobody in our house has the internet now. Okay, but now my child is sneaking out through their window and they're breaking into my neighbor's house. so that they can get down there and access porn on their computer. Okay? I see this all the time. Stuff like this is always happening. I will steal somebody's their phone, one of my fellow students at school, I will steal their phone and risk, getting caught and arrested so that I can access the internet. Because so we know how this is. So it's like, look, we can try this outpatient, but it's going on forever and it's not going to be effective. Your child has zero interest in coming in and talking to me every week because they just see me as that kind of non-validating human in their life. So, even if they can't use me as a dependency, they have no reason to engage with me because they're still accessing all of their dependencies. That's where all of their energy is going. So, your children really, as much as I would like to think, oh yeah, I'm a brilliant therapist, those kind of things. I take this serious. They have no interest in talking to me. They have zero interest in talking to me unless they find me in a situation where they are here right now. Well, I can't get my dependencies. Can I turn Dr. Ann into a dependency? I'll try that initially. Okay? And when that's not working and when we actually do engage, when we finally do get to that place where we have what would be a working relationship, somebody like Jordan, it's like the working relationship that I had with Jordan for about the first 3-4 weeks that he was here in the program was whenever he'd see me, he'd at least give me one of these, that was it. He wouldn't be talking to me or anything. Yeah, but at least that was our relationship to begin with, right? It was consistent. And I would tell him, yeah, we're number one. Okay. Yeah. But now, I think we have great time together. We go walking all the time together in our sessions and do things like that. He's working hard, and but again, part of that was him figuring out, well, I'm not going to talk to Dr. Dan. There's no reason I have to talk to him. He's just one of those impediments to me continuing to be on developmental vacation. I don't need him in my life. So it's only at that point where your child experiences themselves as no longer being in control of the delivery of the dependencies that we have any chance here at all. Okay? There will be no intervention will have any kind of an impact until we finally have established that condition. Right? Is that making sense? And the part about this that is the most concerning for you as parents as well is that your child picks up right away. When they come here, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I can't access my substances. There will still occasionally be that substance-seeking behavior that we see. It doesn't always come out in looking for substances, but we still see that. And, they realize, well, I don't have access to the internet, even though there will be those times when I'm attempting to do that. And also there will be those, occasions where I get a chance to demonstrate how pervasive my process dependency actually is. One of those occurred just 2 weeks ago when we got all the laptops. We had everything shut off by Wikipedia, but there will be those students like, oh, as soon as I can get on to Wikipedia, let me see if I can find some porn on there, okay? Now, but again, that's part of being here as well. It's like everything that you do, it kind of gets revealed as to where you really are. So it's at that point, I'm going to realize that the easy dependencies are no longer immediately accessible, but my parents still are. And so even though I might be thousands of miles away from my parents, I will not do any work as long as I perceive that my parents are still being used by me as a dependency. And so I'm going to do whatever it is that I need to do to make sure that I'm stringing my parents along as a dependency as well. And that's why we tend to coach you a bit, especially initially, in what's the nature of the interaction that we're going to have here with your child. What is this really going to look like? What does this have to look like if we're disrupting the process? Like, for instance, and I have no idea how this actually happened. I've I've been so involved with the outdoor behavioral component of the wilderness-based component of adolescent treatment. I was there almost from the time that this started, almost from the time that it started in the United States, okay? And for some reason, again, some maybe well-intentioned individual decided, well, one of the things that needs to happen when a student is enrolled in a wilderness program, it's like one of those, this is the bedrock of a wilderness program, is that the parents send an incredibly detailed impact letter with, out to that child. So the child's out there, they're there for a day or two, bam, and they get this, multi-page letter from the parents saying, here is how you have negatively impacted our family, and go through, meticulous detail. You did this and 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 this. And, for me, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that's just extending the dynamic that we have in place. And one of the things that I would not want to have happen is I don't want to charge you as parents the exorbitant amount of money that you have to pay for treatment to give you something that you could do at home for free. All right? I don't want to be that guy. Okay? I don't want to be that guy. I think there are plenty of those guys out there. I don't want to be that guy. All right? So, instead of something like the impact letter, we don't need you as parents to immediately start justifying to your child who is already using you as an object that it's okay to be their parent. Okay? No. We're disrupting that dynamic. And that's why even here we say, look, okay, no letters until your child writes you. Okay? No letters. So if your child is deciding, well, that's it, I'm not going to talk to my parents. I'm just not going to write them. I know that it's going to drive them crazy. That if I don't write them, and I don't write it, and I don't write it, and I don't write, I know that they're actually sitting at home. I have this little vision in my head of my parents just kind of huddled together in the living room, holding each other and crying, because they couldn't possibly be going on with their lives because I'm not writing them any letters. And I know that they're just being absolutely punished by the fact that I'm not writing them any letters, because I have that little vision. And so, and I'm waiting because I know my parents. I know I don't have to write them, but I know that my parents are not only are they going to write me letters, but my parents are also on the phone, calling up every relative that I have. And they're saying, hey, Johnny's out there, he's out at White River Academy, and he's out there, and it would be really great for him to get a letter from you of encouragement and let you know that you're thinking about him. So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting for this cavalcade of mail to come falling out of the sky down upon me, of all these people telling me about how much they are thinking about me and how much they're really hoping that things are going well. I'm waiting for that to happen. If it does happen, bingo, jackpot for me, because that means I'm still on developmental vacation. Dodged a bullet, okay? Because I still have this whole world of dependencies out there that even though I'm here at White River Academy and may be inconvenienced by being here, but I still get to stay on developmental vacation because I still have dependencies in place. Works. It works for me, right? But if I'm here for about 3 weeks and I'm not writing and every time I'm looking at the email log, oh, there's nothing there. That, my friends, has more impact than an impact letter. Okay? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the nature of our interaction has been altered. Okay? That's why we tell you, don't write it unless they write. We're matching energy now. Okay? We're not fixing it. It's not ours to fix. They have to fix it. Now, this is that other thing too as well. If the first letter that I get from little Johnny is that profanity-laced tome telling me about how irresponsible that I am and telling me about everything that I must do now, and if I don't do those kinds of things, then this is how I'm going to be punished. Or, if it's one of those kinds of things that it's telling me about what a crappy decision this was and how I am so incredibly uncomfortable, I don't have all the stuff that I think that I need to have, and here's a shopping list of all the crap that I need you to send me here, those kinds of things. If I'm getting a letter like that, then by all means, I'm going to reply to that letter, but I'm going to write an extremely benign letter back. okay? Because what is it that I'm really looking for? I'm looking for any indication here that my child is actually now beginning to see that I'm the parent in the relationship. I need to see evidence that there's some commitment here to allowing me to be the parent. And if I'm getting a shopping list, or if I'm getting some guilt-evoking kind of slam letter here, there's not a lot of commitment associated with that. So the letter that I write back is a very benign letter. Dear Johnny, it's good to hear from you. Things here are great, okay? We're just out in the backyard, kind of doing a little spring cleaning, getting ready to thing. The cat Boo-Boo says hello. And, we're thinking about, we're just trying to weigh, are we going to have the spaghetti or the lasagna for dinner? We haven't quite made up our mind. So, good to hear from you. Love you lots. Right again. That's the letter. And again, that letter will have more of an impact than the impact letter. That letter will have more of an impact than with you returning a letter saying, oh my gosh, well, let me explain why we decided to send you out there. Because we really sent you out there because we love you, and this is not supposed to be there for you to be punished, but it's there for you to have this learning experience, and there's all of these things that they're going to be able to teach you there, and they have horses, and then, so it's like, no, don't do that, okay? Don't do that, because again, that's what they are expecting. They're expecting you to justify your decision being the parent. Okay? Now, so if I get a letter, Boo-Boo says hello, if I get that letter, it blows my mind. It's like, this doesn't sound like my parents. They must have been talking to Doug Dan. Okay? Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound like your parents, does it? And again, that has more of an impact than you writing, well, let me just explain this to you. And the other part about this is that you as parents, let's take kind of another perspective here. Do you truly believe that after your child has lived with you for as long as they've lived with you, do you truly believe in your heart of hearts that they have no understanding as to why they are here? Okay? Really? Really? And are you really going to put some energy into explain what's the next lecture? Okay? Finally, there's going to be one more lecture that's going to turn this over for them, right? They just need to get the right, no, they know why they're here. They just want to make sure that you're still a dependency. That you're not really my parent, you're a dependency. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so we absolutely must disrupt this. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see the second piece now. It would be cool if we could get to this component, right? This kind of comes more later into things. There's just, I think you may have heard me talk about this. Really, when your child is here, there's like 4 phases that everybody is on their own time schedule. But there will be the 4 phases that you can see that they're progressing through. And these are not like programmatic phases, these are phases of treatment, okay? The first of which is landing, okay? It's landing, it's just me acknowledging that this is where I am. And it takes some kids a little longer than others. It's me finally acknowledging, okay, I guess I'm here. Usually when I'm here, when I first land here, I'm just like, I'm not really here. No, forget it. I'm not doing this. I just need to write that first email. I'm just waiting for my email to land in my parents' inbox, and as soon as they read that and get freaked out by that email, as soon as I convince them that this is not the right place for me, that they were sadly mistaken, that they were misled, that they're wasting their money, whatever it might be, as soon as they get that, then they're sending the limo, and I'm out of here, okay? So I'm not really here. I'm just waiting for the limo to show up. That's essentially what's going on. And it may take me quite a few months to realize, gee, the limo's not coming. And I still have this image. Gosh, I think of Bill, as a matter of fact, because he's like, well, the limo's coming, but, as the longer I go, then the limo gets better and better and better. Okay, the limo's coming with a hot pizza and a duffel bag full of money. It's the limo's coming. It just keeps coming, that kind of thing. And and mom has said, no, the limo's not coming. Oh, I think it is. I think there's a way to make it come. No, it's not really coming. Okay, and grandma's not sending the limo either. Okay, the limo's not coming. So it's only at that place Where I understand the limo's not coming, that I realize, okay, I guess I'm here. And I acknowledge that I'm here, I've landed. That would be the first phase. The second phase would be the integration piece, and that tends to be, okay, I realize that I'm here, so integration, that means I am looking for the least acceptable degree of effort that I can put into this. Okay? What can I get away with? That's the integration piece. I'm going through this, I'm dragging my feet, I'm still lying to my teachers, I'm still lying to my parents. You know, I'm expecting that my parents are going to buy the idea that the only reason that I can't do what I need to do is because everybody here sucks, all right? And that all the other students here suck, and that, you know, it's like that I need them to fix it. I need them to get on the phone. I need them to talk to my parent liaison, you know, and get the ducks in line, okay? Because things here are just terrible, that nobody knows what they're doing. You know, and it's that kind of thing. I'm doing the least acceptable piece, but I am still, you know, as much as possible trying to keep the dependencies in place, the integration part. And this is the piece that takes the majority of the treatment time. Most of the time that your child is here, they're going to be in that integration phase, right? Now, things really begin changing when we talk about that next phase, which is mastery. Okay? Mastery is the third phase. And this is where the critical shift takes place. Okay? It's absolutely where the critical shift takes place. This is where my child begins recognizing, you know what? It's not just about getting out of a program. Okay? And my goal has always been, what do I got to do to get out? I just need to get out. From day one, I just need to get out. Okay? My parents sent me here so that I could just get out, right? The critical shift is now, okay, I'm going to get out of the program. I understand that that's actually going to happen, but I'm beginning to understand that I'm a different human being than I was when I came. That I'm developing an identity that's different from the image that I had when I came. And the identity, the creation of this identity, along with the accompanying competency that's coming from this identity, is what I really value at this point. It's not just about getting out of here. It's about becoming that different human being. Now, you know, again, we should probably go into this later on with some other discussions when we talk about the two different groups, the compliance group and the community group. And I always think compliance is a crappy name. It's not really descriptive of what that's all about. It should be probably a different name, but we just haven't been smart enough to come up with another name. So we call it the compliance group. You know, a part of it though is like, I need to give you a place to be revealed as to who you really are, right? Because I don't want you using me as a dependency. And I don't want to engage in this game where we're just pretending like you are something that you are not. So really, if we're going to begin any kind of treatment, I need you to at least be at a place where you are willing to take a rudimentary level of responsibility for yourself. Okay? I need to see that. And you know, by doing that, are you going to be willing to follow the structure? And will there be some things that you can find just a minute level of discipline in following those things? Can you discipline yourself just to do that? If not, then I get it. You're still using me as a dependency. You still want to use the world as a dependency. And we're not really ready to do the treatment yet. You're not really ready to take that responsibility of moving along. Now, we do this because we want to have a parallel for your child and as many parallels for you to realize, you know, to assess your child as to, are they ready to be done? Okay? Have we actually been able to disrupt that developmental vacation? You know, part of that is that initially most students, when they find themselves in the first group, they want to move on to the community group as quickly as possible. It's like, I got to get out of compliance. I need to get into community. I need to get into community. I just need to do that. I need to get into community. Okay? That becomes the goal. And for some students, it's pretty tough to do because they have had trouble being distracted in the past. They've had trouble. They've not really had to actually discipline themselves to do something that might not be immediately gratifying. It's tough to do. And it's tough especially if I have been very, very enmeshed with my friends in the past. If I've had a huge dependency on my friends, I've had a huge dependency to be a part of the crew, okay? Then it's going to be hard for me to break myself away from the cool guys, okay, the rough guys, the thugs that are that are like permanent residents there in the compliancy group. It's going to be extremely difficult for me to do that, okay? But if I actually decide at one point that I'm going to white knuckle it, I'm going to grit my teeth, and I'm going to, for 2 weeks, I'm just going, oh, got to do it, I got to get in the community, got to get in the community. And again, the people, the students that are on the committee and community, if the staff are seeing that I'm doing okay, they're going to give me that option. And typically the communities even say, hey, we're going to give you a shot. We want you here because we want to move everybody in there if we can. But if the only goal that I've had was just to get into the community, once I'm in there, that's all I've got. I usually can't sustain it. Okay? I usually can't sustain it, and I crash and burn. And it's much the same way. If the only goal that I have is getting out of the program, then that's all I got. When I'm out of the program and I'm now expected to successfully live once again in your home, I can't do it. I can't sustain it because I really haven't become that person that can successfully live in your home. So, when we're working on that idea, that third phase, when we're working on the mastery piece, the whole idea is now I am becoming that human being that can successfully sustain my life outside of White River Academy, outside of whatever treatment program that I might be in. Okay? That's what we're looking for. And that has become my goal. It's not just getting out, it's becoming that different human being. And now I'm the one that's actually looking for those opportunities to become that different human being. All that stuff that I was avoiding before, now it's like, oh no, bring it on. I want more. I'm going to be the guy that's looking for the challenging projects. I'm going to be the guy that's actually submitting to be able to do these kind of out-of-the-box stuff that occasionally gets done out there. I'm going to be that guy that's looking for new opportunities to extend myself. I'm going to be submitting to be learning a second language. I'm going to be submitting to, take up some kind of a musical instrument. I'm going to be submitting to go do martial arts. Okay? I'm going with Dr. Dan to Zumba, stuff like that. Okay? That's what's happening. Because, I have this sense that I really do want to develop myself as a different human being. Okay? The last stage, just so you know, and again, we'll go into this in future discussions. The last stage is that transition stage, and that's where this piece comes in. Okay, this and in a different orientation than the integration. We're talking about the phases of treatment. This second part of treatment, the integration part, is now I have to reintegrate my child back into their developmental continuum, right? They were on a developmental vacation. If we have successfully disrupted that developmental vacation, we still have to put them back in their life someplace. Okay? They have to go back and continue because they still have developmental tasks that they got to do. If we've got them through that place where they've been able to accomplish the developmental task of childhood, then we now have to get them started on the developmental task of adolescence, and we need to find the appropriate place to do that. We can't just drop them in there. It's like, oh, okay, well, they're 17. We disrupted the developmental vacation, so let's just put them where all 17-year-olds should be and hope that they're going to do okay. No, we got to find a place that's appropriate so that there is that continuing support and they're moving on and eventually getting caught up to wherever they need to be. Okay, questions about that? Anything else? Anything that's... Okay, what time is it? Why don't we take a break? And when we come back, let's talk about how can you as parents especially know that the treatment is progressing in the manner that it needs to? How are we successfully disrupting the developmental vacation or not? Okay, but let's take a break. Let's take about 5 minutes. I think we are kind of running a little long. So do 5 minutes and get back here. And then the next time we break, it'll be lunch. Okay, so let's resume our discussion here, and we need to get into kind of the meat of all of this, especially because we're talking about how do I know, if has my child actually moved beyond the developmental vacation, and in order to do this, the best way is for us to assess whether or not our child has actually accomplished the developmental task of childhood. Now, just being a kid, you think, well, I've got all these carefree things in my life. I have this period in my life where there's really not very many expectations, and it's a pretty blissful kind of a spot, right, in my life. But, whether we like it or not, we really do have an incredibly important developmental task that must be accomplished in our childhood. Absolutely. And the significance of this developmental task cannot be overstated. There's no way that I can talk about how important this is too much. It takes us 10 years of our life to accomplish this. And that is fairly significant, especially if somewhere in the midst of this, I decide to go on a developmental vacation, okay? And I get kind of placed behind. And unfortunately, there will be those individuals who never really do resolve the developmental task of childhood, okay? So we need to talk about this because it has implications for us, especially as parents, in determining, is it going the way I need it to go? How do I know that the developmental vacation has finally been terminated and we're ready to move on? So let's talk about this. Now, again, this would not even be something that we would need to talk about. If I were here lecturing the parents of honors students who, it's like, how do we get your child ready for the transition to college? We wouldn't be talking about this. We would be talking about how to make a healthy separation from your child, those kind of things, how not to be that helicopter parent, whatever it might be, that kind of thing. But we wouldn't be talking about this because it wouldn't have hit your radar. It wouldn't have been something you would even thought about. You would have had this experience with your child through adolescence where you would have realized, well, yeah, you know what? There are the typical ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the strum and drang of childhood or of adolescence, but not to the extent that we're picking up the phone. We're not picking up the phone saying, hey, I need a little help with this, okay? So I wouldn't really have even had to think about this, but since we are looking at it in terms of, I need to know what's going on, we have to talk about this. We got to talk about this because we have to use now what typically is just kind of the natural flow of our human development as a way of being able to measure, are we getting through it? Okay, so let's talk about the developmental task of childhood. Let's go ahead and come to this notion that really we have to get to a place. Now, let me tell you how this actually works. This task starts, and the real task of childhood starts at age 3. Okay? Now, we have some other important things that happen prior to age 3. And especially for those of you that have children here who had some odd things happen to them in their early childhood, those that in the past you may have heard the diagnosis of reactive attachment or those kinds of things. Obviously you can recognize, yes, there are incredibly important things that take place prior to age 3, the first few months of our life, actually. But at age 3, the reason why we start talking about this at age 3, because typically, if everything has gone okay, I can tell that everything's gone okay if at age 3 my child is firmly entrenched in the notion that they are the center of the universe. Okay? And I know things are all right if my child is there. Where they have this idea that the world revolves around them, that they are the most intelligent one, that they are the cutest one, that they are the one that should have all of the attention, that if there's anything that they want or that they need, it just falls out of the sky. Boom, somebody else is going to provide that for them because that's what everybody else's job is. It's everyone else's job to ensure that I'm okay, all right? That's where I am at 3. And, 3, it's like we've been through the terrible twos. This is the prelude to this. It's the prerequisite to this, so to speak. But at 3, I'm there because my language has developed sufficiently for me to begin reasoning through this. I can keep it in one place from day to day. Hey, that's cool. That's
I don't want to save time.
Yeah, you can do that.
It's not my computer, so I take no. It's my external drive, but it's not my computer. Okay, it's not my fault. Yeah. We really do live in an imperfect world. How are we expected to be okay in an imperfect world? All right. So anyway, getting back to this. At 3, and truly my experience would have been as a 3-year-old in a typical atmosphere. It's like, yeah, I am the center of the universe. Because you know how this is. A baby comes into the family structure. The entire structure now kind of collapses around that baby. Whatever the baby schedule is, the family structure has to adjust itself to accommodate that. So, I've experienced myself as being the center of the only universe that I really know. And really, I haven't had to do anything, mainly because I can't do anything. And, anything that I need has always been provided for me. It's always been there. Okay? So, yeah, firmly, I'm at this place where I absolutely expect I am the center of the universe. And as far as I know, this will continue through perpetuity. Forever and ever, I am always going to be the center of the universe, and it's always going to be everyone else's job to make sure that I'm okay. Now, the task starts at age 3 because I now am going to be subjected to a series of what can best be termed as existential crises. And it starts making sense to me again because now at 3 I have sufficient language to be able to process these. I'm still processing them with a 3-year-old brain, okay, but I am processing them nonetheless. Right. So the task begins when I have to start wrestling with a couple of very disturbing concepts. And the best way to illustrate this is the example, some of you have already heard this, but the example I always use. Here's my 3-year-old child who has knowledge of that plate of cookies that's sitting up there on the counter. And as that 3-year-old, I've decided that at this point in time, there is absolutely nothing more important than accessing 1 or 2 of those cookies. And so, my first shot at this will be making an appeal, a supplication to whatever parent might be there. Say it's my mom. It's like, how about a cookie? And my mom says, no, we're not going to have cookies right now because we're getting ready to eat dinner. And I don't want you to spoil your dinner. Okay? Now, we forget as adults what that 3-year-old brain is really all about, right? Because we think when we say something like that to our 3-year-old child, right, that their brain now is processing it in these terms, that they're thinking to themselves, I don't really understand that concept. I'm not really sure what spoiling my dinner is all about, because I'm pretty sure I could probably do a couple of cookies right now, eat dinner, and be ready for a couple more cookies after dinner, okay? So that whole thing is a foreign concept. However, this is my mother talking here. And I know that my mother has wisdom and perspective far beyond my own, okay? And I know that my mother loves me unconditionally, and that my mother would never ever tell me anything that was not in my best interest. So even though I do not understand the concept, I'm going to go ahead and defer to mom on this one, all right? And I'll just hold off on the whole cookie thing, right? That's how we would like 3-year-olds to behave. But we know that that's not a 3-year-old brain, okay? A 3-year-old brain hears, no, we're not eating cookies right now, and it goes in and it says, red alert. You are now being challenged as the center of the universe, okay? Prepare for attack, all right? That's really what it is. Like nobody says no to the center of the universe, right? That's like, okay, it's on now, all right? Somebody has said no to the center of the universe. Now, here's the problem that I have. If you tell me no and you make no stick, then I have this tremendous conflict. It's like, how can I be the center of the universe if somebody is telling me no and making it stick? I'm losing my position. I can't be that person, okay? So I have to go to war with you because the only sense of myself that I have is being challenged. And so I have to go to war. Okay, I got to go to war. I have to reassert myself as the center of the universe, however I'm going to do that. And so it's on, and I do whatever I have to do. And that's why we get these weird kinds of interactions with our 3-year-olds. You know, it's like I go from 0 to 60 in 4.1. You know, bam! It's really on. And you know, I go from can I have a cookie to doing the screaming, flailing tuna. You know, and screaming at the top of my lungs and kicking the floor, those kind of things, or just even anything. It's like, no, you got to sit in the car seat. We've always sat in the car seat. You know, we don't even start the car till you're in the car seat. You know, what's the deal? It's 3-year-olds. Okay. Well, the deal is that I am fighting for the only sense of myself that I have, that of being the center of the universe, and you have challenged that. And if I'm not the center of the universe, then I have to start working on this question of, well, then who am I? You know, this is where I start that building that just even that rudimentary notion of what is my identity going to be. If I'm not the center of the universe, then what? There's nothing right now. You know, there's not much else there. Now, there's a corollary that goes along with this. That second piece is all right, who are these people who have the audacity to tell me no, right? Why would they possibly tell me no? Why would I have individuals in my life that would prevent me from doing what I want to do, okay? Because I, as far as I'm concerned, there is nobody on this planet that knows better than me about me, okay? So why would somebody be telling me no? What's the deal here? Do they just want somebody to boss around? Okay? Did they just bring me into their little kingdom so they could have somebody to kick around and tell what to do? Okay? They're just trying to create mini-me's or whatever it might be. Are they just trying to take away my identity? Are they trying to squash my sense of agency? What are they doing? Okay? Why would they do this? They're just trying to keep me down, whatever it might be. Now I have to go through this and figure out, well, who are these people? Right? Those two things. Who am I if I'm not the center of the universe? And who are these people? So I have a lot riding on whether or not you make no stick. Okay? Because I'm going to battle with you, and if I can do whatever it is that I need to do to make it so that you back off of no, I'm good. I'm good. I don't have to grapple with either one of those two questions. And it reinforces that idea, I really am the center of the universe. Watch that, okay? And no one is going to tangle with me now because now they're going to get the wrath of the center of the universe. And I know how to bring it. And I know what I have to do every time to make it so that you back off of no. And so what I spent my childhood doing is becoming very, very skilled in getting you to back off of no, to making sure that you cannot set any structure for me. I will defeat that structure at every level. Okay? That's an important thing because, you know, if I don't ever have to grapple with that structure, I don't have to figure out who I am, and I don't have to figure out who you are as a parent either. I just see you as that obstacle and that object that I can manipulate. Now, what has to happen here is I got to go through 10 years with you of having these existential crises. 10 years of letting my brain develop. 10 years of scrutinizing you at every turn. Because really, I'm trying to find out, who are you? Who are you really? Who are you? Not just at those times when you're setting structure for me, but also, who are you when we're sitting at the dinner table, telling silly jokes, and we're talking about each other's day? And who are you when you're out in the backyard with me, practicing my soccer skills or playing catch with me? Or who are you when you are actually, attending my school functions with me, those kinds of things? I need to see you. Who are you when we're on family vacation? Who are you in your interaction with my other parent, with your spouse? Who are you? I need to see who you are, right? And it takes me 10 years. And it takes me 10 years of gaining that perspective as well. 10 years of being around other adults. 10 years of coming to an understanding of, this seems to be how human beings are in the world. Who are you in comparison? Right? So that at that point when I am 13 or 14, right at that place where my brain is also going through some significant changes. Okay? My childhood brain is pretty well designed to gather information. It's collecting as much information as it possibly can. My adolescent brain begins culling away unused pathways of my childhood brain. And it begins putting myelination, which is the insulator on the neurons, right? It begins myelinating those most used pathways so they become more efficient. So, the neural pathways that I form in adolescence are the ones that are the strongest. And it's also at that time when my prefrontal cortex is growing a bit and becoming more efficient as well, so that I have a little better reasoning ability to put behind everything, okay? So hopefully at about that time when all of this is happening, one day I wake up when I'm 13 or 14 after spending 10 years of scrutinizing all of you, and I realize, you know what, I get it. I'm understanding what this is really all about. My parents have provided the situation that they've provided for me, not because I'm the center of the universe and that I'm entitled to this and it's their job to do this for me. But, after seeing who they are for years and years and years, what this really means is like they actually love and care about me. Okay? They are concerned about me. And after being with my parents for years and years and years, I realize that they have brought me into their kingdom as the little prince that has been in their kingdom with them, to prepare me to have my own kingdom, which hopefully is going to be greater than theirs. They want that for me. They didn't bring me into their kingdom so that I could stay in their kingdom forever, because I don't want that either. Okay? And they actually want me to have as much influence in that next kingdom as I possibly can have. And I want that as well. Okay? I'm anxiously awaiting all of the influence in the adult world that I can have. And I'm anxiously awaiting admittance into that adult world. I want that right away. So I kind of get it. My parents and I are on the same page as far as that's concerned. And I realize that my parents really do have my best interest in mind. First and foremost, they have my best interest in mind. And even when they tell me no, they still have my best interest in mind. They're not just telling me no because they want to keep me down. Okay? No, there would be a reason why. And even now that I am 13 and 14, I'm not always going to understand why they would tell me no. But I am at a place where I can realize, gee, they do have perspective that I don't have. And I'll defer to them because I believe that they have my best interests in mind. And I realize as well that all of the structure that my parents give me is not necessarily an invitation to go to war. That all structure that I encounter does not have to be a threat to the only identity that I have, okay? Because I'm okay at this point, and part of it is like I've worked through this notion. I'm not really the center of the universe, okay? I can give that up for some alternative understandings of who I am, but it doesn't have to be a threat. So I can come to this understanding that there is such a thing as benevolent structure. And part of this is that I have to recognize that it's my parents who are the purveyors of that benevolent structure as well. And if I can get to that place now, through adolescence, my parents and I have a relationship that will be based on mutual trust, okay? And we can do that. I trust my parents that they have my best interests in mind. And my parents now can give me opportunities to be trusted so I can demonstrate to them that, yeah, I'll make good decisions. You know, that I can discipline myself, that I'm willing to abide what it is they want me to do. So they're able to give me more and more increasing opportunities to be trusted. That I have the abilities to, you know, keep extending it further and further and further and further away from my home base little castle now. And my parents will be okay with that. But unless I demonstrate to my parents that I trust them, then my parents really can't give me those opportunities to be trusted. You know, one more of those things, it's kind of, it was actually just even one of those things when I first became involved with White River here as well. The students would be filling out their own kind of treatment plan, so to speak. You know, what would be the goals that you want to go over with your parents? You know, what are you going to accomplish while you're here? And very often, one of the top things that they would put on there would be, well, I need to get my parents to trust me again. Okay? That would be one of those things. And one of the things that I would like you as parents, and I've also been working with the students as well to readjust their thinking about this, is that's not really a goal that you want your child to have, necessarily, the way that is. Because if I'm essentially saying, I need to get my parents to trust me again, then what I am saying is, I'm still in control of the relationship, okay? That there is still something that I'm going to do to make you do what I want you to do, okay? So that the behavior that I'm demonstrating is not necessarily behavior that I am internally desirous of doing, but it's behavior that is designed to get you to fall in line once again. All right? So part of the readjustment in thinking here is that, okay, no, that's not something that you can control. Whether or not your parents ever trust you again in their lives is completely up to them. And your parents are not obligated to trust you. Okay? It's not written in stone someplace in the Cosmic Parent Handbook that you absolutely must trust your parents or must trust children. Right? No, not at all. Not at all. But if you ever want an opportunity for your parents to extend you the privilege of being trusted, you have to demonstrate to them that you trust them. That is the piece over which you have some control. Okay? And you know, that's the piece that your parents need to see. It's the part that also is going to be the strongest indicator. Are you somebody that can successfully live in my house? Because if you don't trust me, if you don't trust that the structure that I am providing for you truly is that benevolent structure, then it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're still going to be having these extended battles with me, you know, and any structure is still going to be a threat, and any time that we have a disagreement, it's going to move into this huge power struggle, and we're not getting anywhere. We will not get anywhere. We don't have a relationship that will be based on mutual trust. So the piece that I need to see is, do you trust me? Do you trust me? And there are plenty of opportunities for you to demonstrate to me that you trust me. And as a matter of fact, your involvement with where you are right now, whatever treatment regimen you find yourself in, that's probably the best place for you to demonstrate that you trust me. Okay? That you're no longer arguing with me about this. That you're no longer trying to convince me that I was sadly mistaken about putting you here. That somehow or another there are all these elements of this program that that I was not informed or misinformed about, whatever that might be. That you have gotten to a place in your life where you've said, hey, you know what, if my parents want me to do this, I'm doing it. Okay? I am doing it. Whatever it is they need me to do, that's what I am going to do. Do I always have to like it? No. If, as I move through my life, am I going to, maybe want to live my life this way when I am an adult? Maybe not. Okay? But as long as I am expecting to be a member of my parents' family, living within their home or having them be directly responsible for me, I'm going to do what they want me to do. Because I need them to see that I trust them. And as they see that I am now making decisions based on the fact that I will trust them, and I'm making that decision that I am living my life in a disciplined fashion because that's what I want, not because I'm trying to get them to give me something, then they'll give me more opportunities to be trusted. This is part of the reason why even within a program, we can't actually say, look, compliance is not necessarily an indication of change. Because all of your students knew how to comply before they got here. You saw this all the time. Every time you took away their cell phone, oh, now I'm going to get a lot of compliance. Okay? I'll show you that I know how to follow the structure. But as soon as I get the cell phone back, then I'm back to living my life the way that I really want to live it. So really, the only way that I can trust you is to see that you are living your life in a manner that is disciplined because that's what you want, not because you're trying to get me to trust you. So that's an important part of this. It's a really important part of this. And when students bring that piece up thinking, oh, well, what Doc Dan wants me to hear, what my parents want me to say is, well, I want to get my parents to trust me again. It's like, no, not going there. You got to trust your parents. And they don't want to hear that. They do not want to hear that. And, there have been conversations that we've had on the phone with parents and some of you here even where we've had to say, I think we're done with this conversation because it is about trust. And now we're back into a power struggle, so let's just end it here. Okay? Is that making sense? Do you get that piece? So, the best indicator, is it working or not? Is the best indicator, not so much is it working, but the best indicator is, have we gotten through the developmental vacation is, do I have indications that my child is trusting me as the parent? Do I see that my child is letting me be that purveyor of benevolent structure? Now, there's, again, some caveats that go along with this. And if we as parents want our children after that 10-year period of constant scrutiny, if we want them to see us as those individuals who have their best interest in mind in everything that we do, then it really has to have been that way. Okay? It absolutely had to have been that way. And there are a lot of things that can happen within the courses of our own lives that interfere with our ability to have our children's best interests firmly in mind. Okay? A lot of stuff happens. If my parents get divorced when I'm relatively young, especially if this takes place before I'm 6 years of age, and my parents get divorced and I'm going through an extended, a very protracted custody battle with them that, that in some ways continues even after the court judgment has been made, where I have been artificially raised to an extended period of being the center of all the adults' universes in my life, then yeah, I'm never going to get to that place where I see my parents as being those, the purveyors of benevolent structure. No, I will continue to see myself as that center of the universe. All the adults in my life are fighting over me, okay? And I will use them. I will use that to maintain my position as the center of the universe, and there isn't anybody that can say no to me, right? Because I can always find a way around no that way. If I encounter parents who have a significant dependency of their own that is out of control in their lives, right? I'm going to see right away that is impeding their ability to put me and being a parent as number one for them. There's a lot of those things. If someone would have come to me personally when I was about 14 years of age, if they could have found me out there in the middle of Montana where I was living, and would have come to me and said, hey, we're doing a little survey here just to see how things are going. We'd like to know, do you think that everything that your parents are doing for you do you think that's in your best interest? I would have to say, well, geez, every time my dad comes home drunk and kicks the crap out of me, I don't think that was in my best interest. It would have been really hard for me at that point in my life to look at my dad and say, yeah, he's the guy that knows me and understands me and loves me more than anyone else. And the kinds of things that my dad would be expecting of me are really those things that are going to, be in my best interest. No, heck no. Wouldn't have happened. Wouldn't have happened for me. So, part of that is that as your child is going through all of this, and, part of their own therapy, and part of it being like, look, what does this mean? Here's the reality that you have with your parents. Where are we with all of this? If we get through all of this and say, no, there's no way. I can't do it. I can't trust my parents. I don't care if they don't realize that I don't trust them, but I can't, because there's too many things that's preventing me from being able to trust them. Then, we've got to move it along another way. But the part about this is that if we don't ever get to that place in our lives where we actually realize that there is such a thing as benevolent structure, then it means that we go forward in our lives needing to control every relationship that we encounter, right? I have to be in control. I'm still using those relationships to validate that I'm the center of the universe. And so I don't ever really get very good at mastering life, but I get really, really good at making people care about me, at least temporarily. So I have to go out there and I have to learn whatever it is that I need to learn to make it so that people will care about me. And it can be a very superficial, very temporary caring as well. So, I can go out and become one of those charming people. I can go out and be an incredibly provocative sexual person, whatever that might be, that I'm looking for some of that instantaneous caring through those very transient sexual relationships over and over and over and over. I just need somebody to care. Doesn't matter how long. I need, if they will care for an instant, then at that point, I can use them as the object to validate me, however it is that I need to. And so typically I go through life leaving a lot of bodies in my wake. I don't really care that I'm doing that, because again, I just see human beings as objects. So I don't really care. They're either validating or invalidating, but I have to become good at making people care. Another good way for me to make people care, so to speak, is I become incredibly pathetic in my life. I become weak to the spot where I have to make this presentation that everyone else in their world has to take care of me, okay? Because I can't do it. That somehow or another I came to this planet without the necessary tools to be able to administrate my own life. And if you don't help me, then there's something seriously wrong with you. You can't call yourself a decent human being if you don't help me. That kind of thing. So, once again, these have been people that have been described as one author as individuals who wander the earth with their umbilical cords in their hand, just looking for somebody to plug them into, okay? So if I can make you, even in a transient sense, make you care about me, I'm plugging in that umbilical cord, and I will suck you dry out of everything that you have. I still stay in control of the relationship. Okay? So, what we're talking about here is one of those things that's incredibly important in our human development. And if we don't resolve that early task of childhood, we're in a lot of trouble. We're going to have a pretty volatile experience with the human beings that we have from that point forward. Okay? Is that making sense? Now, really, this is why what we are doing in this whole developmental vacation thing, this is why this is so important. It's so important. And if we don't get it in that period of childhood and adolescence, it becomes increasingly difficult to manage in adulthood. And part of that is that it's very hard for me, after I've left a lot of bodies in my wake, to actually turn around and look at that and realize, I got to take some responsibility for that. That becomes incredibly difficult to do. Very, very difficult to do. And, I become very, very good at insulating myself from that and denying that. And I say, no, that's really not me, even though I continue to do that. Okay, let's keep on. What time is it? Okay, let's continue on then here. Okay, yep, we've talked about this one. Now, the other part about this is that I got to get through childhood to be able to work on what it is that ideally we should be working on with your kids right now, the developmental task of adolescence. And, part of this is I've got to have that vision of the thing, that there is such a thing as benevolent structure in order for me to continue on to this. It's contingent upon that. Now, we can look at this in terms of, well, if I've spent the first, from 3 to 13 or 14, if I've spent that 10 years of my life essentially scrutinizing you as my parents and scrutinizing all of these other adults that I have in my life, if that's been my job to do that in that 10-year period of time, and I actually do arrive at that place, okay, I get it, my parents are good enough, they're not perfect, they love me, they have wisdom that I don't have, I can look to them as being purveyors of benevolent structure, I'm good with it. But now what do I do with the next 10 years of my life? Okay, I've spent 10 years being pretty good at scrutinizing. What's the next 10 years bring? Do I just continue to scrutinize? No, because I've already answered the question. Who are these people? I've already answered that question. I got it. Well, what's the next 10 years of my life? Well, if I've spent that first 10 years as well coming to that conclusion, all right, I get it, the king and queen of my kingdom is a benevolent king and queen. And it's okay for them to be the gatekeepers to admission to that next kingdom. So now, I need to figure out, well, how do I gain admission and how do I begin developing mastery into that next kingdom? Okay? And it means that there has to be a leap of faith that I am willing to take in all of this. And that leap of faith is, well, okay, I'm not really sure how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to abide by the structure that those I trust in my life would have me abide. Okay? Because I have no way of knowing how it's going to turn out because I've not ever been there. But that's part of me having faith. Okay? That there is somebody that knows better than I do how best to administrate my life. And so, if I can do that, I can take that leap of faith, and it means now that I'm putting myself in that position where I'm doing stuff that I don't really want to do. I'm doing things that may not necessarily be all that convenient for me to do. I'm doing things that are hard for me to do as well. Okay? And I'm doing things that I'm probably not going to be successful initially doing. I'm going to fail, I'm going to stumble, I'm going to fall on my face. It's going to be kind of hard for me. And it's not going to be immediately gratifying for me as well. But I'm learning a couple of things. There's a couple of pieces that are coming out of this. Just for example, I guess maybe the best example we could look at is this: if I'm this adolescent, if I'm in my mid-adolescence, and as you well know, by the time I've hit my mid-adolescence, if I don't really want to go to school, No one can make me. You can't make me, you know. You can escort me to school, but you can't ensure that I'm going to be there sitting in class, okay? So if I'm that mid-adolescent and I am, you know, every day I'm getting up, doing the appropriate preparation so that I'm doing my necessary dress and grooming. I'm, you know, getting something to eat, whatever that might be. I'm finding some conveyance to school, whether I'm walking, riding the bus, driving a car, or catching a ride with my parents or friends, whatever it is. I'm figuring out how to get there. Once I am actually on the school property, I'm walking through the door and into the school, where I am going into a classroom where I will sit in a desk with other students in that classroom, some of whom I'm sure don't really like me, some of whom may actually even be trying to bully me or make my life miserable. But I'm in there and I'm listening to an instructor who I may be convinced doesn't really care all that much about me, and he or she may be lecturing on a topic that I may think is having no relevance to me. You know, it's like, hey, I'm going to be a rock star. I don't really need to pay attention in English lit, okay? You know, that kind of thing. But I'm there, I'm taking the notes, and I'm paying attention, and I'm repeating this action, you know, 4 or 5 times in different classes throughout the day. You know, I'll finish my day in school at some point in the afternoon or evening. I'm actually going to sit down in my house and write the book reports in its entirety with the footnotes. Once I get it written, I will actually print it off, and I will take that printed material and put it in my backpack to be taken to school the next day. Once I arrive in school the next day, I will remove that from my backpack and actually give it to my instructor, and I will turn that in to be graded, okay? I will be doing that. All of those things I will be doing because I have made that decision to do that. Now, if I'm a kid on developmental vacation, I'm not doing any of those things. None of it, okay? I'm going to find some place in that entire process to kind of derail the train, so to speak, because I don't want to take responsibility. I still want someone else to take responsibility for it. I still want somebody else to be doing the work for me. And I will find a way to make it so that somebody else does the work for me. Oh, I was in school. No, they just mismarked me on the roll, okay? No, I really did hand it in. The teacher has just lost it, okay? I did hand it in. I'm sure she graded it. It's just been 2 months down the road. She just hasn't marked it on the parent portal yet, okay? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's, you know, because really what I'm essentially saying is I don't really care about school. I just need everybody in the universe to recognize I am the center of it. I shouldn't really have to actually go to school. That in my way of thinking, I should be able to sit school out until the evening of when my class actually walks to get their diploma, then I'm up there with them. That the rest of the world should just recognize that I shouldn't have to do the grunt work that everybody else does, that I'm just brilliant enough that they should just hand me the diploma and call it good, okay? And I firmly recognize that somehow or another, I shouldn't have to do it, but somebody else is going to make it okay. Somebody else is going to make it okay somehow. If I blow off all of those assignments and lie to my parents about it, then they're going to go on the phone irate and talk to my teacher, and my teacher's, you know, as hectic as things are, they're going to find a way to make some concession for me so that I don't actually have to wind up doing the assignment, but it'll still be okay. I'll just get socially promoted along with my class. I don't actually have to learn anything, you know, those kinds of things. Now, part of this as well is realizing that, again, I can have those well-intentioned professionals who will tell my family, my parents, even teachers that I have, that they will be saying something like, well, gee, you know what? Little Johnny is not progressing here. They're not making an effort towards achievement because they have this huge fear of failure. Okay, the fear of failure is paralyzing them such that they can't marshal sufficient resources to actually do what they need to do. They get started, and the fear of failure will take them in their grasp and freeze them such that they can't complete anything. And, you know, I imagine maybe even some of you have heard this, but, you know, with my experience with adolescents on developmental vacation, it's not a fear of failure at all. Absolutely not. Failure has been their best friend up until now. They embrace failure, right? I have no fear of failure. No, not so. It's like, bam, I thrive on failure. And failure helps me continue to deceive myself with the idea that, well, if I really did it, I would do it in such an excellent manner. But, since I'm not really doing it, so I don't have to do this, I can continue to deceive myself. And I also use failure to blame it on everybody else. It's never my fault that I am failing. It's always somebody else's fault. Right? So there's no fear of failure. The fear that I really have is that I might actually not be the center of the universe. That I might be just like everybody else out there. That I may not necessarily be all that special. Even if I have been somebody that's had this incredibly traumatic past and I've had all of this crap come down on me, I'm really not that different than everybody else. That if I want some kind of influence in the world, I have to pay the dues to get that. Nobody else can do that for me. I'm not that different. That's the piece that scares the crap out of me. Okay? That I'm not necessarily special. That in actuality, if someone were to find out that I can do the work, then again, they would hold me accountable for that. Okay? And I could no longer manipulate them. I can no longer be that individual that can't actually do it because it's too hard for me, that I need all of these concessions made, that nobody really understands me, right? So, it's taking that leap of faith. I've got to take that leap of faith. And if I have found myself to be comfortable in that position as the center of the universe, and I've really not had to comply with structure, and I've not ever had to come to that position in my life where I realize there is somebody out there that knows better than I do what's best for me, then I'm not taking a leap of faith. Forget it. Forget it. I'm just going to find a better and more sophisticated way to stay on developmental vacation. And I'm not going to go to school. I'm not going to be worried about turning in my assignments. Okay? And I'm going to feel victimized at the conclusion when I'm not walking with my class. And it will always be somebody else's fault. It will always be because somebody didn't understand me, somebody didn't make the concessions for me, and it will never be about me actually not doing the work. Right? So the first part of this is that, number one, I'm learning that if I want some influence in the world, I pay the price. Nobody can give it to me. Okay? I can't buy it. I have to pay the price. I got to pay the dues. If I want that influence, then I engage in that concatenated regimen that's going to allow me to get it step by step by step by step. Right? Then it also helps me formulate another aspect of my personality. That's an incredibly strong part of all of this. Okay? Now, part of what needs to happen for an adolescent is they have to get into this position where they find themselves engaged in a self-disciplinary procedure, that they are disciplining themselves to do something that's hard for them to do, that they may not necessarily want to do, okay? That may not necessarily be fun to do or immediately rewarding to do. But they have to answer the question, okay, this kind of sucks, but I am doing this because. They have to be able to answer that question. It's not, well, somebody else is making me do this. No. It's like, I put myself in this position. Nobody is making me do this, but I am doing this because. There is a necessity to answer that question. Now let me illustrate, okay? Again, I know myself better than anybody else. I got to take my, back to here I was in my mid-adolescence. And, in the summers, obviously growing up in Montana, out in kind of where I grew up, in summers I'd be doing more agrarian kinds of things, which translates to shoveling a lot of stalls, okay? But I would do that in summer, moving a lot of irrigation pipes, stuff like that. But in the winter, when there was all that snow on the ground and it was really cold and things, and I was going to school, and so after I would get done with school and and whatever athletic thing I was doing at the time. I would typically work in like a restaurant. All right, I worked cleaning buildings and stuff like that in the winter when I was in high school. But I can remember at the restaurant having gatherings with my friends on Friday evenings. On a Friday evening after school in the evenings, and we're doing the ceremonial waxing of the skis. I don't know if it was like this with you guys with skiers, but for me, the evening before when we were like tuning our skis, with the iron and all the wax and the P-tax and all, that was part of the ritual, because that was where all the BS took place as well, right? And I can remember those Friday evenings when my friends would be saying, "Well, geez, Sanderson, why don't you just call in? You don't have to be there tomorrow. You saw the weather forecast. There's going to be umpteen inches of powder, and so-and-so is going to be up there with us, and we're going to be doing all this." It's like, just call in tomorrow. You don't have to go to work. And I can remember the next morning then finding myself at the restaurant where I worked in the dish room, and watching busloads loads of skiers pulling up outside the restaurant to come in and eat before they took off to the hill. And I can remember thinking to myself at that time, man, this really sucks. And I know when I see my friends again later that evening after working all day and after they're back from the hill, that they're going to regale me with all this stuff that they did and how much fun it was and all those kind of things. And I remember thinking, this really sucks, but I'm going to stay here and do my job because, and the because for me, and I was an immature adolescent, right? And I was there, but the because for me was because I need a 69 Mustang Fastback with a 4-speed and a 351 Cleveland. Okay? And I knew that there was nowhere that was going to happen for me unless I was the guy that got that for myself, right? Well, I need that 69 Mustang Fastback because I'm going to be able to get out of Dodge finally, because I do not want to stick around there. And the other part about it is that, well, at that point, all the women will really dig me, okay? Because I got that great car. Didn't work. But look what I have to deal with, right? I was like, but that's where I was at the time, okay? I need that 69 Mustang Fastback. Now, the thing about this is that your child also needs to find themselves in that place where they are inserting something in that blank. And you can probably think back to when you were an adolescent and you found yourself in those kind of situations. It may well be that you filled it in with a much more mature answer than I did, okay? Well, I'm here because I'm trying to be responsible and save money for college. I'm here because I need to purchase the clothes and other materials that I need to go to school, okay? Yeah, I'm going to do this because I'm trying to be a responsible individual. I wasn't that, okay? It was about a 69 Mustang for me. But the pieces, and the most important part is like your child needs to be in that place where they have to fill in the blank with whatever it might be. Because this for them, the first time, this may be the first time where they're now hierarchically arranging what's really important in my life. Okay? What do I really believe is important to me? And unfortunately, for me, it was the 69 Mustang. Okay? Now, the 69 Mustang kept me in the dish room. Okay? The 69 Mustang kept me where I needed to be, shoveling stalls and those kind of things, but it put me in a position where I began experiencing myself, and it put me in a position where others now would be experiencing me differently as well. I tell that story that's like when I was about 15, even before I had a driver's license, and I had cajoled my parents into allowing me to ride my dirt bike. And I had this old crusty dirt bike back then, but they'd let me ride it down the county road to the feedlot where I worked. And I remember one day writing that thing in and just parking it out there in a parking lot. And the foreman of the feedlot looked over and he yelled at me and he called me, they called me Sandy. And I hated it, okay? But it was those little crusty cowboys, you know, and they're keeping me in my place. And I looked over and it was Carl and he yelled, "Hey, Sandy." And I looked up and there's this big wad of keys coming right at my face, you know? And it was one of those momentous periods, one of those momentous times in my life, you know, the critical period, moment, I could say. It was like 2001 Space Odyssey. That music was playing as those keys were coming towards my head, you know, dun, 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 you know. And so I grabbed the keys, and it was the keys to the front end loader, okay? It's like wow! You know, for me, it was the significance that, okay, I had somebody in my life that was now seeing me as an individual who had established some competency on this world and actually had now made some competency in the world of adulthood, okay? That's like he's giving me the keys that I get to use the front end loader today, okay? I'm not gonna be on the business end of a shovel all day long. I'm driving that loader. Yeah, okay? It was a momentous occasion for me. And, you know, through those successions, there were more and more and more of those for me that I actually found, you know, as I moved into construction and things like that, that for me, it began bringing me into that period where in treatment we would refer to it as mastery, but I was actually realizing, hey, you know what? I kind of like this identity that I began developing here. And for me, it was also, well, maybe I'm not really as stupid as I have been led to believe that I am. Maybe it might be a good idea for me to stick around and finish school and think about perhaps going to college. I wonder what that would be really all about. And in essence, that 69 Mustang, where at one point it was that thing that I held up there as like, this is the most important thing in my life. It kind of took, you know, it started dropping down a little bit. You know, now it was like, well, I better figure out how do I get through high school, okay? And it's like, okay, well, what about college, okay? And how do I figure out how to pay for college? You know, if that's really what I want to do. And, you know, those kinds of things. And it made it so that I had to come to this definition of what really is important in my life and how do I hierarchically arrange those kinds of things. And the reason why this is important for all of us is because that list of whatever it is that truly is important to us, that's what becomes our internalized value system, okay? That's the thing that tells us what it is we are going to do. We will always be doing whatever it is that we think we need to do to obtain what it is that we need. Now, so all the time I hear this when Doc Dan is like, "Doc Dan, I don't know what to do." It's like, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I can't tell you what to do, all right? But you can tell me what it is that you need, and the only thing that we can really do is figure out, is what you are doing actually helping you get what you need? If it's not, then quit doing it, right? Or if you don't know what it is that you need, then it's like, well, look at what you are doing. What you are doing is saying what you need is to have somebody just keep a door shut behind you. Okay? Is that what you really need? Because what you're doing, that's what it's taking you to get. Right? So, unless you're adolescent, and the same was true for you, you can look back in your own lives and realize this is actually how it happens. Unless your adolescent finds themselves in that position where they've taken that leap of faith and they are disciplining themselves to do something that is not immediately gratifying, that's not necessarily easy, that's hard, that they don't necessarily want to do it, but they're doing it anyway, they will never get to that place where they have to answer that question. I'm doing this because. And they never develop that list. That list that becomes that internalized value system. If I don't have that internalized value system, then I don't have that information that I need at every decision point in my life. That when I get out there and I have a decision to make, all I have to do is look at this list, this internal value system that tells me, gee, is it helping me achieve this thing? Is this helping me get that 69 Mustang or not? Okay? And then I know what I need to do. But if I don't have that list, then every time I have a decision point, the only thing that I have is, well, how do I control this immediate situation? How do I make sure that I have dependencies in place, making sure that I'm okay? And I keep making the same stupid mistakes over and over and over and over and over because I don't really have a sense of where it is that I'm going or what it is that I'm trying to achieve. You know, and unless I find myself in that position that we've talked about, I'm not ever going to get that internalized value system. I won't have to actually decide what truly is of value to me. Now, this is one of those things too that we can look at our own lives right now and realize, gee, the thing that I put number one on my list when I was 19, hopefully it was a lot different by the time I was 40. Okay? Hopefully it's a lot different than the time I am right now. When I don't know, I'm hoping that maybe I can make it into my 80s, I don't know. I'm trying to get there. Okay? I'm hoping that it's a little bit different at that point as well. You know, because I'm gaining a different perspective. But it's that number one thing, and once I can get that number one thing in place, everything else kind of falls into place. You know, it becomes that purpose in life that I have. And as I grow and develop and become understanding what that purpose in my life actually is, then it will help me realign and hierarchically arrange all the other stuff that I have in my life as well. But I don't ever get there as long as I'm the center of the universe and don't ever have to take that leap of faith and never find myself in that situation where I have to answer that question, why am I doing this? Because really, if you boiled it right down, all of you almost on a daily basis have to answer that question. I mean, we do that all the time. You know, we're sitting at work and we think, why do I have to deal with this? And we have to answer that question. Why am I getting up and doing this every day? You know, why am I not just living this life of fun and entertainment all the time? We have to answer that question. And ideally, your adolescents are answering that question now too, because the task of adolescence is, did we get this? Oh, here it is, yeah. I have this stable identity instead of a dependency, you know, or that dependency upon an image. The image is the thing that makes it so that I can keep my dependencies in place. The image is whatever it is that I'm doing to manipulate the world around me to let me stay on the developmental vacation. The image can be almost anything. It can be a haircut. It can be the clothes that I choose to wear. It can be whatever piercings and body art that I have. You know, it can be my diagnosis. You know, an image is very transient. But the thing about this is, if I have a stable identity, that's who I'm going to be no matter where I am. So we know that we're not there when you hear from your adolescent, I can't be who I need to be as long as I'm here. I can't be who I need to be as long as there is this staff that's still here. Okay? You know, those kinds of things. You know, again, it's never about where you are. Where you are is, all where you are is reveal who you are. Okay? It needs to be about you. So if you are becoming the individual that you need to become, it's not going to really matter too much where you are. You know, it's going to be evidenced by that. Okay, let's keep it. Wait, let me. Yeah. Okay. This is that. I don't know how much we're going to go into this right now. That the self-esteem versus self-efficacy. There is so much about this whole self-esteem thing, and that idea that it's everybody else's job. Up until about the age of 6, yeah, it is everybody else's job to help me know if I'm doing okay. But if I'm like 14, 15, 16 and self-esteem is still my primary interest and everybody else making me feel okay about myself, I'm in trouble, because really this is going to go in a couple of directions. I'm going to be incredibly depressed when I actually have to recognize that I am an imperfect being in an imperfect world, and it's never going to be perfect. I'm never going to live up to that ideal that somebody has dumped on me, that I'm just this incredible guy, that I'm have all of these capacities, whatever it might be. So I have this I get this depression, or I become very conduct disordered, where I can feel pretty good about doing very evil things. I can feel very good about the mean things that I am doing in the interest of preserving my sense of entitlement and esteem. Because that has become number one in my life, so it doesn't really matter how much I trash you over, because it's still all about me feeling good about myself. And there have been some incredibly interesting studies about this one as well. Okay, I want to show you just kind of an ending. I want to show you a video, but I don't know.
What have you learned from your students, if anything?
What I've learned from my students is that students today are completely full of shit. That is what I've learned from my students. Is that much like the generation before them, the only thing they are really interested in is you telling them how right they are and how good they are. That is the same mentality that basically forces Harvard to give out B's to people that don't deserve them, out of the fear that they'll go to other schools that will give them B's, and those schools will make the money.
But I heard that, it's like, yeah, amen, brother. That's exactly my experience with most adolescents as well. The idea of being something, the image, is more important than actually being it. You know? So, you know, I wear the accoutrements, or I acquire the accoutrements of adulthood, but there is no way that I can actually be an adult. You know, I want the world to think that I am, but I'm certainly not ready to be an adult. And as long as I can fool them, then I'm okay. And as long as the rest of the world's willing to buy it, then I can keep it going. But, you know, that's the piece that we're looking for now. Like, show me where your actual identity is. I'm not really interested in the image. Let's see what that identity looks like. And it's not contingent upon where you are. You can show me who you are here. As a matter of fact, you're going to be revealed here better than you will anyplace else, because there's no dependencies. So who you are here is typically going to be who you are out there.